I'm sure as you can see now we're recording. Any pre-song wisdom for the listeners?
No.
Maude, it's a Maude Cast. Straight man and boosty villain. Ruin Sunday best. And super secret wind chime maker, shoe collector and sketcher and maybe a painter. Unfortunately not in the Tempest. Flanders evil twin, did we forget about her? Maybe thinks Ned is cuddly. Failed amateur fighter from last week's episode. Maude Cast.
Good.
He said
stuff.
it couldn't be done.
Number 9.
Number 9.
Number 8.
Number 9.
Big times.
They said it couldn't be done. But here we are, almost approaching the end of single digits. Brought to you by the Maude Casting Corporation, a division of Dibney Multi-Global Incorporated, sponsored by multiple irrelevant lost references and Viv Cerebus and Jacques Derrida. And also, I'd like to throw in Scott Walker, if possible. Rest in peace.
Why not?
He has a song, and he's called The Angels of Ashes. And the line that always sticks with me is, there's no starting or stopping. Well, that's all right for some who can hang the absurd on their wall.
Beautiful.
That's what we do a little bit, isn't it? We hang the absurd on our metaphorical walls.
Whereas Maude hangs pictures of rivers.
Rivers and
pictures of lots of pictures of herself.
Yeah, there's definitely like a water theme on the pictures around the house. Foreshadowing, spoiler alert, that's going to pop up later in today's episode, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. But how about first we do a little bit of deconstructivism, sionism, via the magic of Jacques Derrida, our favourite postmodernist philosopher.
I always dreamed of a pen that would be a syringe.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. You want me to say it again?
No.
All right.
No, I heard it. I don't really know what that's implying.
I thought of it that pen, so syringe would normally have two functions. One, it would inject you with something like some kind of drug or medicine, vaccine maybe, or it could withdraw your blood. I think he's talking more about the first one. Maybe the pen is something that injects something powerful into you. But maybe I'm reading too much into it. But you know what? Derrida would tell me to go for it. So how does that relate to Maude?
Well, maybe. Because sometimes I think it would be great to pick up a book like The Stand and not actually have to read it, but just have it in your brain. So maybe that's what he means, that you could just inject a book.
Oh, so he means it quite literally. I wish that I could inject my books directly into your brain. But I think you're skirting the issue somewhat here. How does this relate to the context of Maude Flanders?
She likes to draw and she has a diary, so she's always injecting ink onto stuff.
Okay.
And I had ink injected onto me in the shape of Maude.
You did, yes. Knowledge directly injected into the lower layers of your skin. And I think it's now time maybe that, we let the listeners in on that reference from episode 1 that they're still probably scratching their head about. The ghost tattoo on your leg. You want to tell us?
Yeah. I wanted a Maude tattoo, and I was lucky enough to find someone who was offering cartoon-style tattoos on Halloween for £31.
Oh.
So originally I was just going to get Maude, but it didn't really tie into Halloween. So I thought, okay, Ghost Maude. And then I realised that was a much better idea anyway.
That's a really great idea. I didn't know that, actually. I didn't know that story.
Yes. So now, and I got it 7 years ago.
However, you're kind of kicking yourself, aren't you, after what you found on the internet this week, with the realisation that it's possibly only the second best Ghost Maude tattoo out there.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely the second best as long as there's no more. But the one that I saw on Instagram was, it was fine until the glow in the dark thing, and then that just elevated another level. It's considerably better than mine.
It may have taken up 7 more levels. Who are we to know? Here's what I did. Yeah, I love the bird sounds that are going on next to you. I don't know if we've got many today. Can we just take a pause for... Well, you're further away from the window today, aren't you?
Yeah, I've got my phone on charge.
Oh, now, I don't think we can hear it, but the punters, they don't have to worry because I took it and I thought, I bet I can just edit out all the rest and just keep the bird sounds. And I thought it'd be about like 5 to 10 minutes of bird sounds. Unfortunately, it's only 8 seconds long now. So I'll throw it in right now. Listen. Hope you enjoyed that. That was real bird sounds from the previous episode. And if we're lucky, you might hear some in real time bird sounds today. So the other thing is, last week you said you had like cats and birds all over your room. And can you do that thing where, one of the cats has like a funny human name and then they do something like a cat and it's funny, like, oh, Helen Lovejoy's just peed on the sofa. Can you do that?
Yes.
Go on.
Kath's over there just spitting up fur.
All right. I think it works better if we know who Kath is, though. Is Kath a friend of yours or a character from the Simpsons?
Kath's a cat.
Oh, Kath's the cat's name. Here's one. A new section I've called Maudstermind. Can you give us a fact that nobody else would know about Maude, but not a made-up one?
Oh, yeah, I did see something the other day. Surprised me. The only thing I can think of right now on the spot is something relevant to this episode we're going to look at, but she's obviously interested in the cleaning of parks.
Yeah, interesting. Although I will critique that approach a little bit during the episode. But anyway, moving on. So our good friend and uncle, Statman John, he's been away for a little while, and I think he's been back in his hometown of Muden in North Holland. But now he's back. He left this message for me yesterday. Beep. Hello, boys, and also the 2 boys of Nathan and the glasses one and the other one who I imagine was contact lens. But I'm sorry that I've been off. I wasn't in Muden. I was in Worsley Mains. Not in Netto, but getting work at Kraft Macaroni and Cheese Factory. So now I'm night line manager at there. So forgive me if my start's a little bit off, because been busy and I left it to Oregon. I don't even know if you can count up to 10. Meow, meow. I love your shows and everything, but soon you'll be eligible for big cash and money ads, because you know what? You did it. You did it, boys. Raise your hands up in the air and fire your Glocks, left, right, and centre. You made it 1,034 views on YouTube, and I know because I counted every single one with my quill, because I do it by hand. I do me stats by hand. But I tell you what's most amazing, now I'm working at Kraft Mac and Cheese Factory. You won't believe what they put in the Kraft Mac and Cheese ingredients in the real one. The things in it, it's all natural. So here's what I didn't know, and I don't know if you know even all the ingredients of a mac and cheese. So you can even have it. We do one called La Mediterranean, and we've got pesto and sun-dried tomatoes and baby mozzarella balls. It will take... It will take you straight to the Italian Riviera, suitable for vegetarians. So, to sum it up, you did it. So it seems like he was a little bit distracted there. He wasn't fully focused on our stats this week. Now we do know he has a bit of a mac and cheese love, so you can't blame him now with his new job.
I think it was necessary.
I think it probably was very necessary. But we got just enough time for 2 rounds of the Mauditorium. If you don't mind, give me a number between 1 and 168, and I'm going to pitch you a Maude ball, and you blast it into the Flanders sphere.
16.
16. You favour the low numbers. You think that's where the gold lies? Although Maude was not as preachy as her husband, quoting the Simpsons wiki. Do you think Maude was less preachy than Ned?
Yes, because she never initiated the preaching, really. She was just sort of always on hand to help out. But it was Ned it's Ned who jumped through a train car to make a point. And I don't remember Maude at any point going that far to, like she was preaching to Marge about the statue and it didn't work, so she just left.
She likes to protest, but she doesn't, and she likes to suggest, as we saw last week in the Monorail episode. But preach, I don't know. But preachy can also just be this kind of attitude, more of just being a little bit more holier than thou, and she definitely has some of that in her.
Yeah, there's definitely a upper class mentality.
Snooty.
Yeah, looking down on the paws.
Condescending to the flat cap wearing whippet owners. Give me another number.
104.
Oh, yeah, triple figures. 104. Oh, you just dodged a bullet there. Oh, it's a big one. Oh. Comments, Maude nicknames. So Maude, we assume, we know she has no catchphrases officially, according to her funeral speech, but nicknames. My name is Maude, and I'm 16, and I live in the Netherlands. In my country, the name is very popular, therefore a little boring. In lots of other countries, the name is unusual, and I think Maude is a great name if you don't live in the Netherlands. Also, make sure to think of a nickname before you choose. Call her M or Maudie. Nobody gave me a nickname, and I'd like to have one.
Nice. Well, it's nice to know that bit of Netherlands trivia. I'm happy about that knowledge. It makes me want to move to the Netherlands.
Really?
Maude is a good name, and the Maude of this Maude podcast has, I don't think, any discernible nicknames. All I can think of is the time that Homer does the skywriting and it explodes, and all the women of town think that it's about them from their husband because they're all misinterpreting the explosion as like a thing, and Maude thinks it's an angel and says that's Neddy's pet name for me.
Oh, nice. See, this is why we have you on board, for that kind of depth. Now, it's not quite finished there. I'm from the Netherlands and my name is Maude. People from other countries like Canada, France or Italy have had trouble pronouncing my name, and so I had to give them my second name or just say Matilda or M. So yeah. Maude Flanders is not called Matilda Flanders, surely.
No, I have heard that before, though, about Maude being short for the name Matilda. But no, Maude is just Maude.
Nicknames for Maude. Maudie. M. Maudie. Meanings and history of the name Maude. Maude is an Irish name short for Matilda. It means powerful warrior and is mostly used in the UK and Netherlands.
Did that come from you or from the same person?
Oh, no, this is all pure internet facts, but unfortunately I did not write down the name of the website where those facts came from.
I see. Yeah, I've never heard anyone in this country be called Maude, to be honest.
Our Maude.
Yeah, but she's not from England.
No, I mean our Maude, like
my wife.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I've heard it as like a colloquialization.
Exactly. What about that bit there which snuck in because it's not about nicknames? It means powerful warrior. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think she has the potential sometimes.
Christian soldiers.
Exactly.
All right. We outstayed our government-regulated banter time, and now we are on to what can only be described as content. So, what are we looking at in today's episode, Nathan Paul O'Leary?
It's a biggie. We've got the brief whacking day clip, and then we're looking at Marge in chains, which is Maude's biggest appearance to date.
Ooh.
Lots of stuff with her to do in this.
Lots of Maude. We decided we would, if it was more than 4 clips, we would consider splitting. But as we're rounding up, a surprise, listener, this is almost the last episode of season 1 of Maude Cast. Could even be, depending on what you think about our super secret special next episode. So, as a treat, we're going to do the whole lot. Get it all in. We don't want to do a cliffhanger and have you wait for after the 2-week break that we're going to take in between seasons, give or take a day or no day. So in clip 1, Barry White, the singer. It's Barry White, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Barry White, the singer, is on Homer's lawn shouting hooray for snakes. Maude is kind of just, I couldn't tell if it was actually Maude because it was so fuzzy, but I'm going to take a stab that it's definitely Maude. She's over one side, not with Ned by the looks of it, and Rod and Todd seem to be over the other side, away from them, behind Krusty and Sideshow Mel. And some of them are waving sticks around because this is the episode where they have the sticks and they decide to hit snakes. But I'm guessing that at this point they've stopped hitting the snakes because Diamond Joe turns up with a bunch of dead snakes and gets booed.
Yeah, this is basically the last 2 minutes of the episode. You don't see her at all participating in the snake beating. You only see her in this brief, probably not even a full second of her in this crowd, but I have looked and she isn't in any other crowd shot of this entire episode. She only appears in that brief second to celebrate the end of Whack.
So it's another one of the Maude non-participations where she just appears to turn up either at the beginning or end of something, but she doesn't actually take part in the thing itself. Why does she do that? She just seems to do it a lot. Like the monorail, like you said, and Neddie's play and things like that. How she did watch the kids do the President's song, but she seems to be absent a lot of the time.
I think there's a whole mob mentality thing, like I said, going on, in which in the heat of the moment she's got like a fire behind her, and then she gets home, she spends 4 hours making club sandwiches and making wind chimes, and then she realises, she's like, oh,
I can't be bothered. I'm just going to stay in.
She gets distracted by her own little Maude world, doesn't she? She knows there's a whole Springfield out there waiting for her, but she likes that internal Maude, and she likes to go on a little bit of a Maudecation. And
exactly.
Yeah. What did she make of this idea of whacking animals to death with sticks?
Well, again, the fact that she only shows up now to celebrate it being disbanded is telling. Again, I look through the crowds, though, and it's still, because it's still early days, there's no recognisable characters in a lot of the crowds, so I think it's just a case of that. But in story terms, I think she's dead against it, so that's why she's out now, celebrating that it's ended.
Yeah, so she's dead against it because she's like an animal rights activist, or she just thinks it's as a Christian it's cruel, or what's her take on it? I
imagine she's quite similar to what Lisa's going through. It would have been a good, maybe she could have gone next door for some advice, but because Marge is into whacking day. Once again, showing that Marge is a Simpson, not a Flanders.
Yes, no question of that. I heard that Maude was Lisa's godmother.
No.
You sure it's in
Helen?
It's in the Mauditorium. Helen Lovejoy. I'm going to double check where I got my facts from, but I don't doubt you for a second.
It was in. I can go further. It was in a 28 Days Later Halloween parody, and the zombie Helen Lovejoy was on the front of the Simpsons car, and Marge says to Homer, "Don't kill her, she's Lisa's godmother."
Oh,
that's where that came from.
That's not non-canon. Is that a reference to another movie, you think? No.
I don't think so.
No, probably not. Clip 2. So this is coming into the actual episode, I think. So there's a red jacket man who's being stung by bees and shouts, "I'm cured." I couldn't quite work out the reference to that. But we cut to the Flanders living room. Maude's looking worse for wear on the couch, big bags under her eyes and looking somewhat disheveled, wrapped in a blanket, visibly shaking with a book on her lap, which I am going to imagine is the Bible, unless we have any reason to think otherwise. But she's not the worst off in the family. Todd is delirious, and he's shaking. And I wish he were frothing at the mouth, but he's not. Yeah. And Rod says to his dad, Todd's speaking in tongues. And Eddie says, "I wish he were, Rod. I pray for the day, but he's just delirious from fever." There's a lot here, so stop me at any point.
I'll stop you now.
Go ahead.
One of the strange things is this is the most culturally relevant clip we're going to look at. But also, there's an episode much later, and I can't remember where it is or what it is really, but I remember it vividly. And there is another time that Todd gets really ill like this, and he's like speaking in tongues, and then it's after Marge died, and he goes silent and looks up at the sky and says, "Mommy." So he's at some point so delirious that he's imagining Maude is in the room. So that's the next time Todd gets ill. Yes, continue.
So Maude says, "Oh, Neddy, why has God forsaken us?" Which, as you know, is also what Jesus said when he was hanging on the cross, dying. He says, "God, why have you forsaken me?" And doesn't shake his fist, of course, like I did, because his arms are nailed up. But they hug each other. And Ned says, "I can't imagine what we could have done." And Maude's hunkering down, still shaking, eyes closed. And we cut to Ned realizing what he's done wrong. He's watching the 90s sitcom Married with Children. And Peggy says to Al, "Oh, these plants are lifeless and limp. Maybe they'd be more at home in the bedroom." And Ned, rather than turning this off in disgust, guffaws and chuckles along. And then the sky cracks, and he says, "Oh, the network slogan is true. Watch Fox and be damned for all eternity." And of course, The Simpsons is on Fox, isn't it? So a little bit of a
I do like the Fox. The Fox shaming is quite fun, and it's good of Fox really to allow all of this sort of stuff, especially back then when it was like a really it wasn't a very, like, The Simpsons was sort of the thing that picked it up, wasn't it? Like, it was a relatively
huge. It's owned by Rupert Murdoch. Spit. So this was already a huge multinational corporation. So they weren't some little fledgling thing. But however, still allowing your primetime show to openly mock you.
Yeah. The other point I'd like to make about this, both of my points aren't about Maude for this right now, but the other thing is
allowed.
Katie Seagal, Peg Bundy.
Yeah.
Is also Leela in Futurama.
Yes.
So this was a few years earlier than that, but I wonder if it had been at the same time, maybe she would have done her own voice.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah, I like her. Maybe we'll do a podcast about her one day.
About Peggy Bundy?
But the actress Katie Seagal.
Okay, I'm all right with that, as long as we can make a Maude connection. So a lot of people think that speaking in tongues and being possessed is a great thing, and I think Neddy would have loved it. However, no. Todd is just delirious with fever. I don't find out what happens to him, or in fact, really, I have no context for why Maude is looking so bad, or any of this stuff, other than possibly the bees. The bees, not the bees. Is that what?
Yeah. No, the context is a flu arrives from Osaka. Ooh. The Osaka flu, and it very quickly takes over the town and becomes a little bit of a pandemic. And the bees is, Dr. Hibbert says, any medicine we give you will only be a placebo. And then the people in the crowd start screaming, "Where are these placebos?" It's one of the stupidest scenes I've seen, actually. It really made me laugh. But they say, "Oh, maybe they're in the back of this truck." And they open the back of this truck and just killer bees fly out. And then a man eats one of the bees thinking it's a placebo and says, "I'm cured. I mean, ow."
Yeah, I like that. That's quite funny.
Maude's come down with the Osaka flu.
Wow.
Which in itself is another full circle moment for this podcast.
Well, only if people know anything about us, other than we work at the Worsley Men's Maude Flanders Internet Museum database and theme park. If they somehow believe we have parallel lives in which we don't live in the bins near Worsley Mains, then they might know what that connection is. And if you do,
maybe
write it on a postcard and you'll get a no prize, no Maude prize. Clip 3. This is the big one, isn't it? So Marge is in the house with Ned and Maude, and Ned's showing off his new badge, which says his name on it, and he says, "I'll never have that trouble again." But again, I don't know what trouble he had. Maude, she's just kind of standing there next to Marge with her big toothy grin, just kind of smiling at Marge. Don't know really. I don't have any idea what's going on or if any of the Simpsons are there. But Marge says, "If you'll excuse me, I need to freshen up." And she goes to the bathroom.
I'll give you a bit of context before you get to the back half of the scene, because I have more to say about the back half. Marge accidentally stole something from the Quickie Mart and was subsequently arrested. I think at this point the town knows and she's waiting to go to trial. I think Ned and Maude are trying to prove to her that, we're still your friend, but they also have no trust in her whatsoever and expect the worst.
Yeah, that does make what happened in this scene less less creepy. It's still creepy.
Yeah.
But without that context, it seemed incredibly creepy.
Yeah.
And so Maude follows Marge as she goes to the bathroom. Maude leans over to Ned and says, I'll go with her. We see Maude walking through the hallway with like these dead eyes and these limp arms. And there's a big stuffed owl on the wall. And if you know anything about movies, it's starting to look pretty familiar. She takes the painting down off the wall and peers through a hole into the bathroom wall, right, which is exactly like Psycho, the movie. And she's watching Marge, and Marge comes out. She's washing her hands. There's one of the little flower paintings on the wall is slightly askew, and Marge fixes it. And Maude gives the game away by shouting from the other side of the wall,
Just wash your hands and get out.
something along the line.
Yeah. This is one of my favourite Maude scenes from start to finish because I really enjoy the Psycho parody, which it's the third, in like a close amount of time as well, this is the third, like, shot-for-shot Psycho parody in The Simpsons.
Really?
Like, they did Maggie hitting Homer over the head and the whole shower scene, like, shot for shot. And they did this, and they've done something with Skinner and his mum. And also Skinner's house is Norman Bates' house.
Psycho killer Norman Bates.
Very into Hitchcock. Yeah, I also like that this is Maude just being flat out rude. She doesn't trust Marge at all. She hasn't given Marge the benefit of the doubt of, oh, maybe this whole shoplifting thing must have been an accident. This is Marge. She's just thinking, no, this woman is scum. I'm going to follow her. I'm going to watch her in the bathroom. And I'm going to make sure she doesn't steal anything. She can't even handle Marge touching the picture. It fills her with so much visceral anger that she has to yell at her.
Which does give the game away a little bit, because on the other side of the wall, where there's the painting, it says, God bless you. And the O in you just see Maude's eye poking through. Do you think Maude made that God bless you sign?
I think so. The real question is, why was this already in place? Like, it's handy to spy on Marge in this context, but unless they went to the effort of putting all this together for this specific Marge coming around, but it also seems like they invited her around.
Maybe trying to catch her out, but yeah, it is a bit weird because, you know, most people's bathrooms don't have stalls as well, right? So this is a bit dodgy because in the original Psycho, he's watching her getting ready for the shower. And there's a suggestion that maybe he's getting a little bit of a thrill out of it, especially if you see the remake. Do you know there was a remake of Psycho with Vince Vaughn as Norman Bates, where this was the controversial scene, I don't know if you remember, because Gus Van Sant, who made it, he basically made it scene for scene without changing too much, but in this one, he decided to let Vince Vaughn get a little bit frisky with it, and that was quite controversial. Whichever way you look at it, it's a dark parody. If you read into it a little bit more, you would be essentially looking at people weeing and pooing whenever you felt like it.
Yeah, which is
horrible.
Yeah, I haven't watched the Vince Vaughn one. I mean to, because I enjoyed him very much in True Detective. I thought he was quite scary.
I enjoyed him very much in Dodgeball.
Yes.
Thought he was terrifying.
Yes, his best. And also, I had another point in that they've also remade it, haven't they, on a TV show, and I believe Rihanna plays the lady.
Really?
What's her name? You know the one.
Can't
the
remember.
shower lady.
Yeah. Can't remember.
Tippi
Hedren. Isn't that the actress? That's not the character's name. I don't know what the character.
It was, of course, Janet Leigh.
No, I don't care either.
But moving on, this is some pretty dark stuff we've learned about Maude here. And Ned's obviously in on it. He knows that they're doing this kind of stuff. But still.
He gives a nod.
Sorry?
He gives a supportive nod.
Yes, doesn't he? Now, we don't see any fallout from this. Maude kind of spies on Marge in the toilet. And we imagine she saw the whole thing, because she arrived straight after Marge did, which by itself is pretty gross. But after that, Marge just kind of grumbled in that kind of like that kind of noise she makes. And then the next thing we see is she's in court. Helen Lovejoy, no love lost, does the old drinky poos movement with her hand to suggest that people think that Marge might be a little bit of a booze hound herself. We see Maude sat directly behind the Simpsons family. Looking pretty unhappy and glum. Couldn't quite get a read on this one.
Yeah, I think they've obviously included her because of this is sort of, to me, the follow-up to the last scene, in that they obviously wholeheartedly believe she's a criminal and kind of want to see her brought to justice. Seems to be the theme of why I think they're there. Again, this sort of Marge darkness inside her. I think part of her wants to see Marge go down and these poor kids lose the mother, which in a horrible twist of fate happens to her own children.
Well, there you go. Be careful what you wish for, isn't it? Are you suggesting that maybe in the same way that Homer wished death almost on Flanders, that all of this death wishing eventually found its place and it settled on Maude Flanders?
Yes. The other thing is all of the three most, except for the one, but the three most prominent Maggie Roswell characters, Maude, Helen, and Miss Hoover, in this episode, all really nasty to Marge. Like, we have the Maude stuff, and then we have Helen doing this, and then there's a scene with Miss Hoover and the Hibberts and someone else. And Miss Hoover tells him that Marge has webbed toes. Oh, no, Dr. Hibbert says that, but Miss Hoover's there insulting Marge. So,
I mean, the town turns quickly, doesn't it? Maybe it's a warning of mob mentality. That's the lesson we learned from the whole show in some regard. But why is Maude looking glum behind the Simpsons family while Helen's on the stand? Because you would imagine she would be all in favor of this stuff.
I get the impression that there's a lot of passive aggression between Maude and Helen. I don't believe they are actually friends, and I'm basing this off the fact that Helen isn't at Maude's funeral.
Oh, yeah.
For no reason.
We will learn a lot when we dissect that funeral about who did and who didn't come, because we already know her family didn't come, and also her best friend Helen didn't turn up. So
the sea captain did turn up.
You want to throw in an idea as to why that's the case?
I think we'll get there in time.
We'll get there in time. So, clip 4. So Lionel Hutz is in the courtroom with his Kentucky bourbon, Exhibit A. The brownest of brown stuff. Now, I always assumed, I just thought this was a given that Lionel Hutz was based on Jack Nicholson's character from Easy Rider, who's like a drunk lawyer. I couldn't find anything on the internet. I just thought I better check. Just get some quotes and some people backing me up on this. Nobody. It seems like it was just me that thinks that's what he's based on.
Yeah, no, I never made that connection. But I've only kind of half seen Easy Rider, so that might be why.
I'm going to go back and watch the scenes where Jack Nicholson's in it as the lawyer, because I can't believe that that people aren't agreeing with me.
One of the best Simpsons characters, also.
Yeah, sadly retired now, isn't he, since Phil Hartman passed away? Him and Troy McClure, I guess, are no longer speaking characters. Sadly.
It also sort of coincided with the decline in the comedy, to be honest.
Your argument is that Hutz and McClure were the real comedy backbone of The Simpsons.
I think they brought a lot more than what we expected or what we assumed at the time, because there's a notable gap once they go.
Hartman's characters, those two, had just that wackiness. Did he do any others?
Monorail guy, Lyle Lanley.
Yes, he's a one-off though, isn't he? Did he do any other recurring characters?
No, not really. I think he does one or two other one-offs, but no, it was just those two.
Hudson McClure would be good to dig into those guys a little bit at some point. But anyway, that's not what we're here for, is it? So Exhibit A, so tempting. Maude's looking concerned as Lionel Hutz is cradling this bottle of Kentucky bourbon. What? You want me to drink you? But I'm in the middle of a trial. And then he puts it down and he runs out of the courtroom, and we expect him to be going to buy some booze. But I know that he's actually phoning David Crosby, the rock star, his support partner, or whatever they're called, his sponsor.
One day at a time.
So behind The Simpsons, this is why I was asking about Maude being directly behind Homer and Marge, because you got Patty, Selma, and then the four Flanderses, And then on the other side, you have Helen Lovejoy, and she's the only recognizable character. Those are the only recognizable characters, but they're sat directly behind the Simpsons, right next to Patty and Selma. And then Helen Lovejoy is right on the other side behind, I guess, the prosecutors.
Yeah, I think that Maude and Ned are there under the guise of support, but that's not what they're, because this obviously they're sat. I don't know if courtrooms work the same as weddings, but they're sat on Margie's side.
Let's assume that's how they work.
Yeah, so it seems to me that Ned and Maude are sat there in a supportive role, but I don't entirely believe that, because Maude has a full arc in this episode, so at this point she's still on the side of things would be better if Marge Simpson was in jail. Yeah,
so okay. But Marge also knows that Ned and Maude don't support her because they spied on her while she was on the toilet and told her to get out. Do you think that the Flanders maybe made up a little bit with her and tried to get her back on side, or at least try to, pretend that they supported Marge a little bit, or is there bad blood between them right now?
No, I think neither. I think Marge, out of everybody in Springfield, has the biggest ability to let things go.
She's a forgiver.
So nobody else could deal with the shenanigans she deals with.
Moving on to clip 5. Something bad's gone down after the trial, but I don't know what that is. However, they're now at a Beautify Our Parks bake sale. Helen Lovejoy and Maude have a flagship stall full of cakes that are really hard to describe because they just look like piles of slop. But let's assume that there's some kind of cake. And a man comes up and says, "Do you have any of those delicious marshmallow squares?" And Maude says,
"I'm sorry, Marge Simpson makes those."
And then it looks like there's some pain in her eyes. Is it shame? Is it pain? Is it false pride because she realizes that people love Marge's cakes better than hers? What is it? What's that response to the Marshmallow Man?
I think that she's just beginning to see the problem. The thing that's happened, and I thought Marge in chains would have been the giveaway, but Marge is now in prison.
What's that look on Maude's face when the Marshmallow Man wants to buy the cakes?
Oh yeah, I think it's neither of those things. She's realising that Marge wasn't an awful person and that she might have gone too far. And I do like the first thing she says is, "I'm sorry." She's very apologetic immediately to this man.
Because she wants that sale, though, isn't it? I don't think it's about Marge at this point. It's just that she wants that almighty moolah from that man. And we find out later that she was right to want that moolah, because immediately the entire crowd just turns and walks away. They don't want any of Lovejoy's or Flanders' cakes. And Helen and Maude, they just look at each other and we cut away. But I'd like to think, what did they say to each other in that moment when everybody walked away and took that $15 with them?
I imagine that Helen blamed Marge and Maude silently agreed with her, but still continued this kind of feeling bad. But I think she would rather agree with Helen than start a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? It's clear that neither of them are ready to admit that maybe they're in the wrong just yet. But it's going to hit him where it hurts, in the wallet, because everyone leaves and we cut to some kind of park ranger who's counting the money. And he turns to some dude next to him and he says, "We're $15 short." That's exactly what Marge Simpson's marshmallow squares would have brought in. And we see Maude in the background looking on passively. Can she hear? Is she aware of the repercussions that by them pursuing this false justice of getting Marge Simpson sent down, in the end, they've actually undermined their own plan to make the parks of Springfield more beautiful?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what she's thinking in these moments. I imagine they've already counted the money and realised that they might be short. What would have been savvy of them is to add that $15 themselves to compensate. But neither of them thought of doing that. And I think at this point it's hitting Maude that, it's hitting her more so than when the man left and all the people left that, she ain't all that without Marge. And they need her. Exactly.
So, Jimmy Carter?
Yeah, history's greatest monster.
Apparently. That's just a joke, right?
Yes, I think so. I hope so.
Because as you know, as the 39th President of the United States, Jimmy Carter struggled to respond to formidable challenges, including a major energy crisis as well as high inflation and unemployment. In foreign affairs arena, he did reopen U.S. relations with China and made efforts to broker peace in the historic Arab-Israeli conflict, but was damaged later in his term by the hostage crisis in Iran, not Japan. In 1980, he was defeated, in a general election by, I'll give you a clue.
Reagan?
It was Ronald Reagan.
Reagan? I always met Reagan. Order up. Reagan? No Reagan. No good.
Anyway, that might be all we have to say about clip 5. Clip 6, Apocalypse. A pack of police dogs attacking Chief Wiggum. He's on the ground wriggling. Rampaging mob with pitchforks. Upturned car on fire. Sofas and fridges being looted. Maude up close, right in the center of the shot, with deep regret. Hands clasped. This would never have happened if Maude Simpson was here. Cut to Maude, heading for the gates of Chokey.
Maude Simpson.
Is that what I said? Did I say Maude again? We should definitely have like a swear jar where when usually me, but you've done it a couple of times, but 99% of the time it's me. I should have you should have a clinking sound, clink. And after, following my error, there'll be a clinking sound, and that's a coin hitting the Maude jar when I accidentally call Marge Maude or Maude Marge, or even Marge's mum or Maude's mum Marge or Maude's mum or grandmum. So that's what that sound was.
Good idea.
That I may or may not have put in.
I was confused.
Marge is heading for the prison gates. Maude is regretful of all the bad stuff that's gone down. Yeah.
And she's this is the end of her story arc here, isn't it? In that she's learned a valuable lesson. And her accent's quite thick now, isn't it? Have you noticed that?
I haven't noticed, but I'll have a bit more of a listen. She's got a little bit of a twang in there, for sure. It's a little bit more defined.
Yeah. Yes, which I like. Yeah, it's all sort of from her perspective, this little part, isn't it? She's the one witnessing the unfolding of society.
Well, I only got 6 seconds of it, I think, because Maude, we just got a snapshot. But do we see more of this madness unfolding, or is that all we get to see?
You see slightly more, but it's pretty much just the same.
And it was Maude's fault, essentially, and Helen Lovejoy.
I think so, yeah. I can't really remember why they're rioting.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's got anything to do with the bake sale or not.
So something happened, because the next scene with Maude is not really in the next scene, but the next scene is Jimmy Carter. But the statue's been changed, but I'll give no spoilers because I'll come back to it in a minute. But if I'm trying to put this madness together, we saw Marge got sent down to prison. Then we saw a bake sale where they failed to secure the amount of money they needed for a Lincoln statue. And now the town is on fire and there's looting and rampaging. And then Marge is out of prison. So to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But Maude has been on a journey in this episode, and we need to focus on that.
I don't think there's anything more to the story, really. I think that's exactly what happens. Marge goes away and everything goes wrong, and then she returns and everybody cheers and gives her a statue. It's the most we've dealt with so far in terms of appearance.
What's Maude's journey? I didn't see any journey other than at the beginning she was spying on Marge, and then she got a bit bitchy with the bake sale, and then she kind of thought, I regret that. Although she didn't actually regret anything she'd done. She just seemed to regret Marge not being there. Yeah,
that is the journey. She started off suspicious of Marge, and by the end, she is understanding that they need her and that she's not bad after all.
You reckon? Is she a necessary evil in Maude's eyes, or is she a force of good?
At this point, I think Maude might be thinking that Marge is good rather than, like, at least some kind of glue that holds everything together.
Really? Why do you think that?
She has a lot of regret. There's a lot of regret in her voice.
She is filled with remorse for something that she may or may not have done.
Yeah, and I think she feels partially responsible, even though she didn't really do anything wrong.
It was Helen Lovejoy who started this ball rolling, wasn't it? And Maude she was just a bystander and let it all go down. But she didn't really cause the problem.
No, but she wasn't supportive.
No. Well, she was supportive of Helen, but not supportive of Marge. And once again, she was stirring the shit. And she was just watching it go off. Do you think deep down inside there was a lot of glee that Marge got sent down, and really the only thing she cared about was that, actually they might come and take my fancy stuff. So let's get Marge back.
Yeah, I think there was part of her that was obviously invested in seeing her go to prison.
Going to hell.
Even at the end. Yes. She even says, you can say, this would never have happened if Marge Simpson was here. Maybe coming from a place of joy. Doesn't sound like it is, but she might be saying, this never would have happened if Marge was here.
It's like an It's a Wonderful Life. Marge isn't there, and the town has gone to heck in a handbasket. But I have no context for how quickly that happened, and you seem to have forgotten. So something happened between Marshmallow Squares and the literal destruction of the entire town. Maybe somebody out there can remember what happened in those 5 or 6 minutes that led from a discussion about whether or not they could afford a Lincoln statue to cars burning uptown on the streets of Springfield. Quite a descent.
I think it's because of the statue. I think it's when the statue gets unveiled and they say he's history's greatest monster, and then they start just rioting, I think.
So really, there's not a lot of depth to that kind of like regret of this wouldn't have happened if Marge was here. And as you seem to be suggesting, they could have just pitched in the $15. Maybe we're applying too much logic to this situation. But I like the writers to be like, all right, let's put a little bit of surrealism in there, but say, what if they'd thrown in the $15 and then bad stuff would have happened? It might have been more interesting. But I think the writing's quite light at times. Because I've just been watching Community, and I'm just thinking that Dan Harmon would have he wouldn't have just taken that easy bait. If he was going to send Marge to prison, and I think similarly last time when we talked about Duffless, where Homer got sent into rehab for pretty much minor indiscretions. I think he'd taken Barney's keys and driven home and got stopped. But I'm pretty sure Homer drives drunk on a regular basis. And so it seems like a missed opportunity for some tight writing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I might be wrong here again, but I think this might also be Conan. I feel like he was responsible for this one.
All right. But he's a gag man as well. And I think, it's unfair to compare them 15 years earlier to Dan Harmon, who's known for being like the tightest story arc writer in the game.
Yes.
But unfairness is what we deal in here, So good. It's all for a game. Clip 7. Marge is back from prison. And
I didn't expect all of this. Ooh.
And there's all people's out on the lawn. Welcome home, Marge. Huge sign on the roof of the house. And Helen Lovejoy rocks up and says, we never should have let you go. From now on, I'll use my gossip for good, not evil. And there's 3 cheers for Marge. And Diamond Joe says, here's a special treat we have for you. And they whip off the blanket off Jimmy Carter, put Marge's hair onto Jimmy Carter, and they change the plaque. And not quite sure how this would beautify any parks, as it's now in the Simpsons front lawn, and I imagine disappears by the next episode. Maude and Neddy are there on the lawn. No boys. I don't know who the boys are, but they're standing there on the lawn. Now, the first time they all clap, Maude doesn't clap. She's not. There's a clapping noise and a cheering noise, and Maude's just stood there motionless. Now, maybe she's in shock. I don't know. Maybe she wasn't ready for this. She needed a little bit more time. However, there was a second round of applause, and Maude is now, she's in there, she's clapping, and her mouth is waggling up and down really strangely in time with the claps, but it's not just her, it's everybody. So there we go.
Yeah. I did notice that she wasn't clapping, which is again similar to the golf game when she was the only one not participating and just sort of standing still and watching. But then, yeah, she obviously sees everybody taking Marge's side, and I think she would rather go along with the crowd in this situation than be the odd one out.
Yeah, she's not doubling down and saying, no, I think, even though earlier when the town was burning, I wish that Marge was back. Now that those cars are not on fire, actually, I wish she was still in prison. I wish she'd stayed there for the rest of her life. And she's probably thinking that or something along those lines. But then she looks around and she's like, oh, damn, everyone's noticed I'm not clapping. So I'll clap along, but I'm not going to stop thinking that thought. You can change my actions, but you can't change my mind, Springfield.
Exactly.
I think that's how it went down.
Yeah, I would agree. And seems like she's learned some semblance of a lesson on the surface, but maybe not. No. Maybe she's just playing up to the cameras. Maybe
the real lesson is just be better. Just be better at evil. There is that line running through because Helen Lovejoy does say, I'll use my gossip for good, not evil. Now, does she stick to that? And if so, does Maude also join her in that? From now on, we won't talk smack about people behind their back. But if we do, we'll do it for good. She's not really gossip, is it?
Yeah, no, that doesn't really happen. She just continues to drag everybody through the mud.
Is there another example that you can think of where Maude's loose lips have sunk some ships?
Not to this extent, but she certainly gets... This isn't the most sort of rude to Marge that we'll see her.
Really? So spying on her in the bathroom and standing by while she gets sent to prison is not the rudest she's been to Marge. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Don't give me any spoilers. So that was it. Is that the end of Maude's season 4 appearances?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so
she's wrapped up.
So the next episode we're going to do is a secret special one that we'll announce later. But what's the Maude story arc then in season 4? We've had 5 or 6 appearances. What have we learned about her?
She's been around more in season 4 than she was in 2 and 3, I think. She's just sort of getting more fleshed out at this point, isn't she? They're adding this whole sort of layer with Marge that they've not really. They've had little moments, but this is the first Maude versus Marge, except for the statue of David. But even that was just one comment and then walking away. Ned doesn't seem to really have a problem with the Simpson family. It's more Maude that tends to be the one that's outraged. And I think we're seeing that slightly more.
And to be honest, fairly justified in her anger and irritation with these clowns that live next door. And like you said, she'd probably get on best with Lisa, even though Lisa does go along with her shenanigans. Do we see much Maude-Lisa interaction?
A small amount. I don't think ever just those two, but there's certainly times when Lisa's been around Maude.
There's an episode where the Flanders pretty much get the Simpsons kids and Magaggy starts to go down that biblical path, but Lisa holds out there. There is just a difference in ideology about how life should be lived. The Simpsons very much represent the lower middle class America of the go-getters and the relaximification, whereas Flanders represent a different side of America, somewhat more invested in those 1950s ideals conservatives still love to look back at.
Yeah. It's also sort of becoming more clear that Homer in particular thinks that the Flanders family are really lucky, but on most occasions that we see them, something really bad happens. Even in this episode, they were almost all on death's door with this flu. Like, she's quite mortal in terms of the Simpsons world.
Yeah. If there was a Flanders-centric version of the Simpsons, whereas, you could just click on Flanders and follow the Flanders through this adventure, it would make less sense, but they generally have more bad stuff happen to them.
Yeah, they have really large, the Simpsons have trivial bad things, whereas the Flanders have sort of, the house will get destroyed, or they'll invite everybody into the bomb shelter and Ned will be the only one who gets kicked out.
Yeah, but it's for laughs, the old saying goes, if you fall down a manhole and break your neck, that's hilarious. If I stub my toe. That's a tragedy.
Exactly.
Exactly. So, we didn't learn too much of Maude's arc. We got more Maude-centric episodes, but we didn't learn much more other than, yeah, she's a supportive wife and mother, but she's got that vicious and mean streak in her, especially for people that she doesn't like. And she'll stand by and let bad stuff happen to those people. And, you know, she's very security and safety conscious in that area, to the extent that she would drill a hole in her bathroom wall to peep at people.
She's also supportive to an extent, but clearly there's some kind of line that she draws, because this season we saw her not turn up for the play that Ned was in, and not turn up for the monorail that she was singing about.
We've assumed there's some kind of moral backdrop to that. It could have just been that Maude had a very busy evening, or they couldn't find a babysitter. Who knows? But, you know, we'll keep our eye open to see if that's another trend. Here's the thing. Before we move on to A Week Too Late, do you think we might be able to flip through a couple of pages of Maude's diary? We didn't get to it earlier, but I'm a big fan.
Yes. When from?
Well, it could pertain to today's episodes of season 4. It could be future, past. It could be something that we've not heard about, but I would like it to be canon. That's my only expectation, that it's pure canon.
Nice. Yeah, I have something from a few weeks in her future from this time.
Interesting.
It just says,
Morning, Sideshow Bob is back. I'm concerned for the children. Won't somebody please think of the children? Ned doesn't seem to be that concerned. He thinks that why would Sideshow Bob have any interest in hurting us? But I'm not sure how I feel about it. I don't trust that man at all. He's no Mr. Burns. More to come.
and then that's it. And then there's another one from a few hours later that says,
Sideshow Bob came round earlier, round the estate. I heard him say that he wasn't going to kill me or Ned or the children, so that pleased me. And now I can sleep again after 3.5 weeks of not sleeping. Going to go for a nap, Maude.
What I particularly like about that is that she signed her own name at the bottom of her diary. Just in case she was killed, she hadn't put her name on the front, although I expect she would have. It's good that she trusted Bob enough to take him at face value when he said he was going to come for them, and that was just enough. So
yeah,
she didn't trust Maude in today's episode, but she does trust our good friend Robert Underdunk Terwilliger. Is that his name?
Yes, but she's called Marge.
Have I done it again?
Yes.
There's the kind drop. Jeez. Jeez Louise. I have another podcast, and we have some terminology in that other podcast, and I struggle with that one as well. But this one, I really only have a couple of names to keep straight. But that Maude and Marge thing, they're so similar, yet so different.
That's all part of the fun, isn't it? That's part of the discussion.
It is.
How similar are they? How different are they?
77% or 70%? That's the real question.
I think she was wise to listen to Sideshow Bob and to not worry.
Well, no one who speaks German could be an evil man. And I hear that Bob does, doesn't he?
The Bart, the.
D Bart D. Very good. Very good. And I like that episode from her diary. It's good to get another perspective on things from behind the Flanders curtains. Now, we're going to go a bit long here, but who cares? Come on. Who cares if this is a Maude long cast? Because I want to throw in a couple of things from A Week Too Late. Apparently, even up until the 1960s in Britain and the US, it was very common for children in school to be forced to eat, write, and cut with scissors using their right hand. Even if they favoured the left, they could be forced up until, our mum's era. And I don't know if that ever happened to our dad. I don't think so. Apparently it was still the case until, not that long ago.
It happened to me twice in primary school.
Well, they made you eat or cut with your right hand. They forced you to.
Well, right, not eat or cut. One was when we went to a Victorian style day out, like the Wigan Pier thing, and they were obviously trying to be, period accurate or whatever.
That's acceptable. That's an in-universe.
But it was still relatively humiliating to single out 3 or 4 7-year-olds and tell them what they're doing is incorrect and they need to use the other hand for no reason. Good. So I didn't enjoy it. And then also my year 6 teacher, when we got fountain pens, made me do it for like a week.
What?
Yeah. He said, just keep using your right hand, it'll be easier.
It'll be easier than using your left hand?
Yeah, because of all the smudging with fountain pens and all that stuff, but it just stupid.
Now, if I knew anything about education, I'd be critiquing that, but this This ain't what this is all about. So, right, we did kind of talk a little bit about non-biblical names, and I have to say that Lisa, Martin, Bart, all pretty strong biblical names. Like, especially if you go for their longer forms, such as Bartholomew and Eliza or Elizabeth, and then St. Martin. So my theory about The Simpsons avoiding biblical names, totally wrong. And but then you can again brings back why Todd and Rod and not Luke and Matthew Flanders. That was funny.
Well, it's also interesting that Bart and Lisa, like the two Simpsons kids, or the two, older Simpsons kids, have religious names, but the two Flanders kids do not.
I guess so. Didn't Groening take a lot of those names from relatives? And
Lisa and Maggie are both sisters' names, I think.
Okay.
Homer and Marge are his parents, and Bart is just Brat, I think.
Ah, yes.
So yeah, that's kind of just a coincidence. But within the Simpsons world, it is interesting that, out of the two families, they are the ones with the religious kid names.
Interesting.
Because you never find out why in world they called Bart, Lisa and Maggie. Lisa and Maggie.
Yeah, they don't have like relatives that they're named after.
That is Bartholomew and Maggie is Margaret. But Lisa is just
that's canon.
Lisa is just Lisa.
But Rod and Todd are not Rodler and Toddler.
No, and also I think Maggie doesn't have a middle name, but Bart's is Jojo.
Like Junior Jojo Shabadoom.
Joey Jojo Junior Shabadoo.
The most ridiculous name I've ever heard. Shall we move on to Maude art today? I've been chomping to get back at this. We ran out of time last week. There was none. It's been a while since we got to this. We've got 4 more face-forward Simpsons drawn by your bad self or your good self. I'm going to share my screen and let you go to town on these. How you feel about that?
Yes.
All right.
Of course.
So the first one here, we got this one here. Can you see it?
Yes. That's from a flashback in season 20 that we will get to eventually, where Ned and Maude, on the day of the wedding, meet Homer and Marge and give them a lift to a hotel, and this is the pajama outfits. But yeah, that's from the day of the wedding. And
a little bird told me that maybe those are Maude's grandmother's pajamas.
Yes, a dead grandmother's pajamas.
Interesting.
So,
what's Ned wearing?
Just pajamas.
Really? He's got like a dressing gown on as well, right?
Yeah, kind of formal pajamas.
That's a groovy one, though. I think you're getting the hang of the face forwardness by this point. What numbers are these?
Yeah, these are later on.
Like up to like the 900s?
Yeah, probably. These are 2 of the more recent. I've not done any for a while, but these are 2 of the more recent ones that I've done.
Alrighty. Okay, so then we jump onto the second one for today with Homer's flashback from when he peeped down Maude's bosom. And this is the reaction. So Homer's all kind of happy and looking whimsical. And then there's the guy that gives him the big up and says that he's a great funny man. And then maybe, I don't know who the woman is. And then Maude is mortified at, at what's been going on.
Yeah, I wanted to look at the dream sequences because the colours are quite wacky. But yeah, and then obviously I knew that there was a Maude reference in that dream sequence, so I felt like it would be necessary to draw her.
Yeah,
I enjoy the outlines because the dream characters are really thick lines.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool
try
design.
to keep that.
Did we ever see the blue guy again?
No, they're both just figments. I kind of thought the woman had a bit of a similar face to Maude, so maybe she was supposed to be Maude. I just assumed the blue guy was Dr. Hibbert because he's the one who responds to the fly gag.
I guess they're just some twisted, warped version. But I would have liked to see these guys pop up in several other dream scenes and maybe have a dream world there. Yeah. All right, so then these other 2, again, they're very churchy. Do you use the same background, I'm guessing, right? And you put the figures on top of it?
Yes.
See, I had this idea, didn't I, a while back of us using those figures to act out our favourite Simpsons scenes. And I'm going to continue trying to persuade you that that's a good idea.
Yes, sure you are.
What about this one here then, where they're stood in front of the church? It looks like a wedding day scene.
Yeah, so this sort of goes with the other one. Ned's outfit is also the same colour for his wedding as it is for the pyjamas that he wears.
Kind of like a pastel blue.
Yes. The only frame of reference for this is you see the wedding photo in the Praiseland episode.
So there's no actual flashback that shows us them getting married or inside the church, because that would have been prime for us to see whether any of the family turned up, wouldn't it?
Yes, but no, that's the closest. You get, and then Homer again. They tell Ned that they'll sort everything out because he can't go through all the stuff. And Homer and Bart just throw everything into a wood chipper. And the photograph is one of the only things that they leave. But he sticks a picture of his face over Maude's.
Oh, Jesus Christ, Homer J, you're a monster.
Yes.
All right, last one. So this is the fun one because this is I don't know too much, but I do know that I've seen these future Rod and Todd. I think they've really started to like them on The Simpsons, and the future Rod and Todd seem to be popping up fairly regularly now.
Yeah. This one is Blind Ned and the Rod and Todd when Lisa's the president episode, the future episode, which is after Maude has died. So that's why she's not around for that. But this old Maude is from that thing that you sent me recently from the Lisa's wedding when she has that fortune teller tell her how she's going to get it, and Maude is in the crowd of the wedding.
They've done the flash forward a couple of times with the Flanders. This one with Blind Ned, Maude's not around, right? But when they do the flash forward with Lisa, which is a dream sequence or a prediction, then she's around.
Yeah, and there's no other future episodes before she dies. So there's only that one, which is why Edna's also there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I really do think those goofy future Rod and Todds are funny, though. So, maybe when we get to the later episodes, we'll find those guys a little bit more. I think that's it. So we've got time for this week. So we're going to go into the post-mortem song in a second. But first, how do you feel about dropping some knowledge on these people about the secret super episode that we've been taunting them with for the last couple of weeks? Can you tell them a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. So for the season finale, we will be looking at a different character in a one-off, kind of a one-shot. I don't know how to call it, like a special.
Yeah.
Focusing on Disco Stew.
Ironically, he wouldn't like this, would he? Because Disco Stew does not advertise.
Correct. That's his first appearance. So yeah, next.
Because it's a bit of a, without too many spoilers away, he's a bit of a one-line gag that was developed into a pretty cool and interesting character. And he was pretty high up on our list of what characters we do if we went beyond the Maude Cast. And so the Cockney Watchdogs present, the Maude Cast presents the Stew Cast for one night only.
One special. I'm just going to pick 6 clips that are telling, and we will discuss what we learn and what we know and what we think.
That works for me. 6 clips that give me the whole gamut of Disco Stew's Simpsons highlights and lowlights. And that's all we got to say on that. Let's move into post-mortem song. Who's starting?
I'll start.
Yeah.
It's the Stewcast.
It's the Stewcast next week, but this week it's Barry White on Homer's lawn.
Just wash your hands and get out.
I'm cured, Red Jacket Man says. Ouch, ouch, ouch.
I've been teasing them, starving them, singing off key.
Ooh la la, talking in tongues. Lord, I wish he were. I pray for the day, but he's just delirious from fever.
Osaka flu.
Watch Fox and be damned.
Katie Seagal.
Stuffed owl on wall, boat picture on wall, peeping eye through wall.
Wedding pajama coordination.
Just dry your hands and get out.
Photograph tilting.
Glum and worried, upside down burning car.
Mad Magazine tattoo folding.
39th president, worst monster in history, dogs attacking Wiggum.
William Henry Harrison.
I died in Jimmy Carter. No clapping, no clapping. Waggling mouth, but no clapping.
Whacking day.
Whacking day.
Whacking day. Whacking Phoenix.
Whacking day.
Yes.
We did it. We achieved the end of this episode and navigated against all odds. Ooh yeah. Bye. Fake bye. Fake bye.
Bye.
I got